Hello DSci 2000. What I'm going to do in this video is demonstrate to you how to submit homework through GitLab. Here's the usual objective slide. Please pause and read this before proceeding. In this next slide, I have a slide specifically for Mac users. Throughout this lecture, I'm going to use a command called git bash here. Mac does not have git bash here. Instead, Mac has new terminal add folder, which does the exact same thing as git bash here. Directions for setting up new terminal add folder are provided in the slide. Please let me know if you run into any issues with this. Now I'm going to go through with you how to set up a GitLab repository and upload files to GitLab. The first thing I'm going to do is open up a web browser. I'm going to type in gitlab.com and I'm going to sign in. The first thing you're going to want to do when you go on GitLab for the first time is click on New Project. You should only have to create one new project for this entire semester. Give your project a name for DSci 2000. You do not need a project description. Set your visibility level to private and then click Create Project. This is the start of your GitLab repository. It currently has nothing in it, but we will soon populate it with files from the DSci 2000 folder that you created in the last lecture. I'm going to open up the DSci 2000 folder from our last lecture. In your DSci 2000 folder, you might have files known as R history files. These can just be deleted. So our goal right now is to do two things. Put this rproj file onto GitLab, as well as the code.r file we created onto GitLab. When you're using GitLab for the first time, what you will want to do is the following. Right-click the DSci 2000 folder, and then go to git bash here. This will come up with a command window as you see here. We are going to go to our slides, and you will want to type in these two commands into git bash. I'm going to copy and paste this first one. And then after the quotation marks, what you want to do is you want to type in your name. I'm going to press enter. And let's get the second command up there. Copy and paste. And type in your email address with a quotation mark and press enter. This tells your computer that when you're using Git, that this is your name and this is your email address. The next thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to initialize the Git repository. How you do that is while you are in your DSci 2000 folder, in git bash, you will want to type git space init and then enter. Init for initialize. This tells me that an empty Git repository has been initialized in that folder. To do this, you will want to see in git bash exactly what is located in the folder. So currently we're in the DSci 2000 folder, and I'm going to type in ls for listing files. And this tells me that the rproj file is located directly in DSci 2000, which is exactly what we see in Windows Explorer. Now that I'm in the DSci 2000 folder, if I want to add the rproj file to my Git repository, I'm going to type in git add and then DSci 2000.rproj. Notice there that I pressed tab to autocomplete, which you can do after you've gotten some of the name typed out. I'm going to press enter. If I type in git status and then enter right now, what this tells me is that Git has detected that there's a new file called DSci 2000.rproj that you want Git to track through the Git repository. The next thing we need to do is we need to add the code.r file from our unit 2 folder. If I type in ls again, I can see that the unit 2 folder is in single quotes. So what I need to do to get to the code.r file is I need to change my folder from DSci 2000 to the unit 2 folder. How you do that is you type in cd and then unit 2 as it is shown in the ls output with single quotes surrounding it. What this will do is it will change my folder from the DSci 2000 folder to the Unit 2 folder. If I type in ls, it tells me that code.r is located inside that folder. I now want to add code.r to my Git repository for tracking. If I type in git add code.r and then git status, Git is now keeping track of that rproj file as well as the code.r file. So this is exactly what I want. However, adding files to a Git repository just tells the Git repository start tracking these files. It does not, however, save the current state of the file into the Git repository. And I will explain to you why this distinction is important in a little bit. These two files have been added to the Git repository, but now we need to save the current state of those two files in the Git repository. How you do that is by committing these two files. You do that by typing git commit -a-m and then in double quotations a message describing what is in your commit. When I'm doing my first commit with the Git repository, I usually have a message like initial commit. I'm going to end that with quotation marks and press enter. And now it has performed a commit. Now you might be wondering why all of this work. You have to add each file to your Git repository and then you have to commit it. The reason why is this. Let's say that I opened up the code.r file right now. And I wanted to add a change to this code.r file. I'm going to press enter. I'm going to add a # for a comment. And I'm just going to add my name to the very top. And notice that this isn't saved because the file name is in red. And I'm going to press Ctrl S to save this. Then I'm going to close up RStudio. And then, if I go back to git bash and I type in git status, Git is tracking code.r because code.r has been added to the Git repository. It has observed that since our last commit, that there has been a modification made to code.r. This is why there is a difference between adding and committing in Git. Adding tells Git, start tracking the file. A commit saves the current state of the file. So in order for me to make sure that that change I just made to code.r makes it to the Git repository, I have to commit this change. So I can do that using git commit -a-m like I did last time. And then in quotation marks, I'm going to type a message that describes exactly what it was I just did, which was I added my name to the top of code.r and then press enter. And then here's where things get really neat. I'm not going to go into great depth on this, but for practical reasons, this is very useful to know about. If I go back to my DSci 2000 folder and I open up dsci2000.rproj, I'm going to go to the top right over here on the Git window, and then I'm going to click on diff. While I'm in diff, I am going to click on history. Here's where things get really neat. By clicking on diff, what this allows me to do is it allows me to view all of my commits in one spot. You can see here the commit messages, as well as who performed the commit, and when that commit was done. If you scroll down here, green lines indicate code additions that were made, white lines indicate code that remained the same, and red lines would indicate code that has been removed. In this situation, we're looking at the commit where I added my name to the top of code.r. This is showing that from my initial commit to my current commits, that this line of code right here is new because it is in green. This can be used to track changes between commits. This is especially important when you start working on code collaboratively, because then you can keep track of who made what changes and specifically what changes were made. That's why it is very important that you add and commit code that you've worked on so that you can keep track of where your project has evolved. I'm not going to cover that anymore this semester, but I wanted to at least make you aware of that. I'm going to close up RStudio. So what have we done so far? I've shown you how to add files to a Git repository, how to save the current state of a file into a Git repository by committing, and now that we've committed, we need to then push these files out onto our online GitLab repository. How you will do that is in slide 33, you will use the command that is located right here by substituting the appropriate values. I'm going to open up Git Bash, and I'm going to type in the appropriate text for my situation. So you will want to type in git remote add origin https:// your GitLab username colon your GitLab password at gitlab.com / your GitLab username / the name of your repository, which is on GitLab, and then .git. You only have to do this once, thankfully. And then next, you will want to type git push -u origin master. And what this is doing is it's putting out the files that are currently committed in your Git repository to your GitLab repository. If I were to refresh my GitLab repository, I can see that the rproj file has made it to GitLab, as well as the code.r file I created. And that is how you will submit assignments in this class. Please let me know if you run into any problems as you go through this process.